G'day guys, how are we all? Hope we're all doing well. Pick us a box and you know it, don't forget to hashtag it, keep it bloody legal. So I wanted to go over, well actually I've got to cut some keys to code. I've got to make up a key for a house that I'm rekeying this weekend, and I've also been sent a key code that I've got to cut. But first of all I'm going to make up one for a house. This house that I've got to do rekey, so this will be part of that video. So, anyway, here we go. I use my space and depth keys, and I use my vice grips. Now, I've seen videos on this, I've done a video on this, but, you know, some people will trace out the depths onto the other key using a permanent marker. You can do that. I've done it. I'm not a big fan of it, and I'll explain why as I go through doing this. You know, to me, it's just not something that I like doing, because to me it actually doesn't cut correctly quite often, I find, if you're trying to do it the code. So the easiest way I find doing it the code is take your key blank and your space and depth key and put the two together. Now I'm going to make sure these are perfectly aligned, both the shoulders and the bottom of the keys, and that's where the vice grips come in, because I use the vice grips. Now I mean, it is easy, it can be easier sometimes to just trace it out, then cut it, and then check it with calipers to make sure your depths are right. I've seen it done, you can do that. Personally, I find doing it this way works quite well. It's like the markers, the 3D printed cutters guides that you can actually print out. Now, I've printed some and stuff like that, but for me, this is just what I like to do. So I'm going to do two. It just works for me. That's all I'm saying. It gives me a much better cut. I can push it right up against the key and trace that key depth that I'm trying to do. You know, and out in the field you can do this as well. It just works. So for me, this is the way I like to do it. So I'm going to go 2. I'm going to keep in with max as well, remembering I'm going to keep into my max for Locksports or the W5s, providing this is actually, well, it is the right one, but again, I'm going to make sure that it's perfectly aligned. There we go. And I'm watching at the moment on YouTube, on the TV there, I'm watching a friend of mine, Uncensored Tactical, Pat from Uncensored Tactical. He's doing a interview on there. Great bloody guy. Does some great training stuff with Uncensored Tactical. Definitely worth checking out if you haven't already. I highly recommend it. He's a bloody awesome guy. Just make sure this is all perfectly straight. Like that. I'll go 5, 5. And the trick is, as well, is to take little cuts at a time. The deeper you go, because you don't want to try and take a massive chunk out. I'll make sure it's as flush and straight as possible, flat as possible. Like this. So push it right up against that key, making sure it's flat as possible, taking cuts. Unhook that one. Put it back on my space and depth keys, which I will be making available up on the website for those who would like to purchase some space and depth keys for. I'm going to be doing Quickset, TE2 for Grainsboroughs, and LW5s, which are also suitable for LW4s. I mean, I'm using LW5s at the moment to cut an LW4 key. So, yeah. Well, we'll put 255, let's go 8, and then a high cut at the back, which is what I like to do. It's just my personal preference. So again, I'm going to make sure these are perfectly aligned all the way through. And I'll show you some little trouble stepping tricks as well. Double check. Okay, it's not quite lined up in the bottom just there. So let's tap that and get that. Alright, I'll loosen that off a little bit. Sometimes when you clip with the vice grips, it will turn the key just at the tip there, which it kind of has just a little bit, like a thumbnail's worth. Just here. Try moving a little bit closer, you can see, so that will throw your key off quite a bit. So I normally just push it like that and try and really get that. There we go. Now it's nice and flush. So let's go. And again, little cuts. Making sure we hold it as flat and firm as possible. Keep our angles, our ramps, so that our key will actually slide in and out nice and smooth. Really make sure it's pushed in just to get that cut. Like that. And we can unhook that one. That looks alright. I will give it a buff and everything. So in my portable kit, I carry, the stuff to be able to do that. As I said, I've got 3D printed. These are for Quickset spacers that you clip onto your key to cut. Now I've had hit and misses with that. It kind of works, kind of, yeah, a little bit of a hit and miss sometimes, depending on how well your printer works. It can be out a little bit. Let's go to like one cuts and stuff on Quicksets is very high. It's a little bit off. It's not too bad. A little bit more fiddling around with 3D printer, you can get it to print quite well. I'm just waiting for one for Lockwood's LW5s or LW6s would be bloody great. And I probably will use it. If if they actually bring some out. So they do work. They're not too bad, but for me, I prefer space and depth keys. It's just more solid, and I know they're correct. I really do know that they are correct. Alright, so there's our manufactured key for a rekey job. Let's put my space and depth key back on. Alright, there's my manufactured key. I'm just gonna clip that. It's one of those cuts that alright, just gonna give this a quick little buff. I'll just pause this for a second. Alright, so I use my big buffing wheel when I'm in the shop here, but if I'm out in public or I'm out in the field and I can't access that, I keep a little wire brush in my kit for it. So, a good little brush. I think it might just be off max at the last cut. I think from 7 to 2 is too many. Yeah, from 7 to 2. Oh, it's right in. There's meant to be 4 cuts for LW4s. There's a maximum adjacent cut. So what I'm going to do now, just to double check, this is something I always do. I'm going to grab my, I don't actually have one in here, do I? No. I'm going to grab my decoding card and I'm going to grab a core with some pins just to make sure it all works nice and smooth. So I'll pause this, grab the stuff and we'll be back. Alright, so I've got my stuff here, so we're going to check our cuts. So this one here does like master locks, the old school master lock, Westlock, Quickset, Schlage. I use the Schlage for LW4s. So just make sure we go 3, 4, 4, 7, no, that's an 8, and a 2. So that is what we actually cut. Now just to double check to make sure it is perfect, I normally take a core. Now, out in the field, you know, you just put it into your key, into your lock and you turn and make sure, you know, if it's a little bit grindy, you file down what feels like the right one. So, you know, sometimes with these, with the actual lishi key cutter, you need to file down your key in certain spots, you know, smooth it out. Sometimes you get little burrs in the middles of your cuts, because most of the time you can't just do one cut. The cutting point on this is too small to do the cuts for a Lockwood or a Quickset or something like that. Little wafer lock keys, one cut is fine, because that's what these are kind of designed for. Mostly that, I reckon, car keys, but I wouldn't cut a car key with this. But you know, that fine little point for actually cutting wafer lock keys is a hell of a lot better. I'm still wearing my safety glasses, because I can hear Pocket Woman yelling at me, "Use safety glasses!" So, right. So I got my little pinning kit here, got my core. Like that. So we're going to, again, we'll double check, where are we? Schlage. 3. So the first one will be a 3. Like that. 4, 4. Got 2 4s. Now, I've actually done this. I've cut keys like this. No, that's the wrong way. And for rekey jobs, so if I rekeyed, I'll make up a code, like I'm doing here. What was that? 7 and 2, wasn't it? 7, 2. So as I said, I've done keys like this, and when I've taken them to the rekey jobs, one or two of the pins was out. Because, you know, there's flush in this core, like this one here. That is flush. It's absolutely... Sorry, I'm off camera, I'm not used to this angle. That is absolutely flush. That is beautifully flush. Can't catch. So, you know, to me, that's going to work in the lock beautifully. And I've had keys where I've done this. I've double checked them like this. They are flush as anything for these cores. I've gone put them into a lock, the actual lock that I rekeyed. And when I was rekeying them, some of the pins, like two of the pins, were off for some reason. Double checked it in this. It was, you know, perfect. It sat. You know, it was nice and flush. It was perfect to actually rekey with. But then in the actual key lock cord that I was rekeying, it was off by like one or two pins. So the other thing I check, just very carefully, so my max must be off with that last cut, because that is quite catchy to come out, which will be that very high cut at the back there. So what I'm going to do is actually change that now from a 2. This is why you double check your work. So I'm going to change that from a 2. I'll try and go the maximum as I can. You know, I like to stay right on the edge of the max cuts. I'll drop it down to a 3. Yeah, so I like to go right on the edge just because it makes, you know, a more secure key, in my opinion. You know, better bitting, high cut right at the back. So I'll take space and depth again. Make sure we're perfectly aligned. Alright, a little cut. Yeah, that's catching, which, you know, in a lock we can't have that. Even that happens. So it's not bloody ideal. So yeah, that last one is catching. So that might mean that my slant is actually off. So what I can do is that is a 3 cut. It should be a 3 cut now. Just double check. Put a 3. In the back there. Yep, that's beautiful 3 cut. Look at that. Flush. But the key is quite catchy to come out. It should be nice and smooth, which should tell me that either that slant, more than likely that slant on the last cut, isn't right. That's catching. So what I can do is just give it a little trim, or actually just take a file without cutting downwards and just touch up that slant. This is what I mean by troubleshooting. Like that. Touch up that slant, make sure it's on the right angle. And then I can just lightly, you know, come across and take a little bit off there. follow that little notch down that's sitting right in the middle there. Like that. So it's still nice and flush, and the key is now working smooth. So there you go. That's a little bit of troubleshooting for you. What can happen is, you know, your little slant could be a bit off when using these lishi key cutters and stuff like that. So anyway, there we go. A little bit of troubleshooting for you. How to cut key to make up a code and cut a key to code. Now I'm going to duplicate this key 3 times. Ready for the rekey job on Sunday. So hopefully I might get a little bit of footage of that. But there we go. Cutting a key to code. Lishi key cutters. A little bit more in depth. A little bit more of the troubleshooting and stuff like that for you. You know, some of the problems that you can come across. But anyway, check out all the links in the description down below. Don't forget to give a thumbs up. Really do bloody appreciate it. And yeah, till next time.